Hey there, Streakers. Hopefully, all of you are having a fantastic day. We are so excited today to welcome a special guest back to the Streaking Show. He was dynamic before, he's going to be dynamic now. He started acting when he was 4 years old, which led him to touring with a band and appearing on national television and a lead in more than 60 shows. In his 20s, he took a completely different turn in life to pursue what he was really passionate about, which was helping people bring out their inner leader and be the best leaders in whatever organization they may be. He is the CEO of Swaz Consulting. He's consulted with leaders on 6 continents, including Silicon Valley startups, family enterprises, and Fortune 500 companies. He's a member of Mensa, International Genius Society, reads over 200 books each year, and has written 3 books with the 4th one, which we're talking about today with him. He's earned a master's degree in business with an emphasis in organizational leadership, worked with some of the leading brands of our time, spent 8 years as an employee at Chick-fil-A headquarters designing leadership development programs. And if you've ever been to Chick-fil-A, you know they're fantastic. And our guest is one of the ones responsible for that. He lives in Atlanta with his wife and 4 children. In his spare time, he continues to write music, design board games, serve in local nonprofits, and push his boundaries through a variety of extreme sports, from heli-skiing to kite surfing. Let's welcome to the Streaking Show, Mr. Scott Wozniak, and let's start streaking. What is streaking and why should you do it?
Streaking is how you set up personal winning streaks. Look at who you want to be and what you need to do to become that person. This is Streaking.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jami.
And we are streakers. Through 30 years of marriage and 7 children, we have learned the power of consecutive consistency, or streaking.
To start streaking is simple. You just follow these 3 laws. Make it laughably simple, keep a record, and join the streaking community.
Streaking is your hidden superpower. With it, you will consistently progress and grow in whatever area of life you want.
In this podcast, Jeff and I will share all the fun, exciting, serious, solemn, wonderful parts of family, spiritual, professional, and personal life, and how streaking powers it all.
So join us in the conversation, join the movement, and start streaking today.
Hey,
God,
guys.
we're so excited to have you back on.
Thanks for having me
Was that
back.
okay? Did we give you a good introduction?
My goodness. I might hire you guys to take me around everywhere. That was pretty
All
awesome.
right, we'll do it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we're so excited to talk to you about your new book. And
Thanks.
it's been, how long has it been in the making for this book?
I mean, 5 years. I was doing the math, thinking about it, and I'm mildly embarrassed. Like, wow, that's a longer time than I wanted it to be. But yeah, we've been working on this content for over a decade, probably, actually doing the work. And then along the way, I was like, man, we should probably start writing down all the stuff that we're doing and capture that. And I kept being, it was one of my, I'll get it in my leftover time, right? Like when I'll, and honestly,
Right.
I'm really not just saying this. It wasn't until I set up a commitment, a streak to say, I have got to at least write one dadgum sentence a day. I am not
Yes.
stopping. Because the first few years was like, I mean, I'll do a little here and a little there. And then it would be like weeks. And I'd realize, man, I haven't done anything. And then I would try to do a hard session on a Saturday. And yeah, it was when I finally said, no, I'm got to be like a pro about this. And I just started knocking it out. And that was only, a year and a half ago. And I know this stuff, right? I've been using speaking in my life in a dozen different areas, but it's funny. You just, because it doesn't mean it's useful. It's not until you apply it. So
It is funny how often there's things that we know work. And even when we've used them in the past and we know they work, there's still that little hurdle where you're just like, okay, I know what I need to do. I got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know, a year and a half ago, I got serious, and then the rough manuscript and there's lots of raw materials. That was almost more the problem, was that unlike all the other books where I had to sit down and come up with the ideas, it's like, I have all the ideas. I have too much. I've disorganized. How do I put it? Do I do this way or that way? And so, So anyways, yes, it's coming out October 2023. So
Okay.
it's going to be, I'm excited because, again, a lot of the other books they're great. All 3 of my other books are fables. They're like the storytelling where a character goes through a journey, and I drew on my background as a, actor, performer, all that stuff. So like they're fun stories, but this one had so much meat. That was one of the reasons why I was dancing around early days. I couldn't figure out how to put all that together and have a meaningful story without it being like a, 400-page book. So I ended up, there's a lot of storytelling, but it's really just, it's just real stuff. Like, hey, let me tell you about the leader who faced this scenario, and here's how he applied it. Here's an example of this, rather than a fictional frame story. And so all that to say, it's a different book for me because it wasn't a cool story with an inspirational message and then lots of little nuggets mixed in. Those are my first three. This one is just like packed with the practical stuff. Here's how you actually do it. And I basically didn't have room for all the practical meat and another frame story around it. So I went with the deep stuff this time around. So excited to see how people respond to that. It's going to be fun.
Well, it is going to be fun. And when we talked last, you were still, I think, let's start with the title, because you were kicking around the title for a little bit. And the title that you did have was kind of Customer Experience Engine, but that's moved to a subtitle.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit on the background of how you came up with the title. And I haven't said the title yet. I'll let you introduce the title and how you came up with it and everything else.
Yeah, I'm delighted you asked this. There's actually a serious story behind the title because I put a ridiculous amount of time and effort into the title. And literally after all of that, we changed the title the last week we could change it and still go to printing.
Really?
Literally. We had, and it was like, and by the way, all those grand ideas, and my wife who works with me and does the whole process, she's just in on the meeting, and so I tend to think by talking, right? Like if my brain's moving, my mouth starts moving. And a lot of times, I don't know how this works for you guys, but my life has been like, I'll say stuff and then think like, do I actually, like, what do I think about what I just said? Like,
Yes.
occasionally got me into some trouble, right? Like, oh, I don't know if that's a good thing I should have said, right? I should have thought about that one first. It's so weird. My wife actually thinks before she speaks. It's the strangest thing to me. So she usually sits in the meeting and listens. It's so weird. Like, she'd been through a lot of these sessions. She's on this leadership team for my company. She's a great balance to me, right? Deep thinker, process, and this is classic her. So after all this stuff, and we're like, I don't know. And she goes, well, what about this? And we're all like, oh, that's what we've been waiting. Like for 2 years, we've been trying to figure this thing out. Okay, so the original title was Raving Fans Engine, which is, I like it. It's cool. And honestly, I'll tell you the reason why we couldn't get it is because the word Raving Fans, or the phrase Raving Fans, is trademarked by Ken Blanchard's company. Ken Blanchard, the business author. He wrote the book Raving Fans. And now this is interesting. You can't copyright a book title. So I don't know if any of your folks are authors. You can pick any title you want. And Raving Fans, because they didn't want people to like lock down a book title and then nobody else could ever use it ever again in the history of books. It's like, no, but you can trademark it for business use. So Raving Fans, he wrote the book. That doesn't mean anything, but he wrote training programs and keynotes and online courses, and they trademarked that. Well, I'm like, Raving Fans Engine is different enough. And so we applied for a trademark, and the U.S. Trademark Office decided that it was not different enough, and we appealed, and and they're like, no, Blanchard's team has it, and so we could have like risked it, and then maybe they wouldn't, they don't have to sue us, but they could have.
But they could, right?
And it was like, I mean, I could do the book title anything I want, but what I didn't want to do is like build a lot of equity and interest in a phrase that then all my websites and my materials can't use, right? And so that's like, so like, no, I want something that they're like, oh, I love that book. I want the training that goes with that book, right? So after a lot of debate, because there was like, maybe we go for it anyway, maybe we do it and just call it differently. And we said, no, let's come up with something that's our own. And so we went through about 20 different options, and I even trademarked a couple of them, and we just could not get excited. So the next title of the book was actually going to be High Octane Customer Engine, because I'm thinking about the engine and really playing with the metaphor. And if you're not a gearhead or not, but octane is the amount of knockback that you have, means the amount of effort that goes into something other than the forward motion, right? So high octane means that there's very little knockback or waste. It all goes directly into the forward motion. And I'm like, well, this is great. It's a high octane customer thing. And so there's multiple problems with that, guys. Like it's like you have to stop and explain it at that level of detail.
This is fascinating. I'm like, that was a lot of thought into a title.
Problem number one, if you have to explain it in detail before they get the idea, like How many people are going to like read a technical description of, and then it's a mouthful. It doesn't come across smoothly. There are awkward websites that occasionally, like if you Google it wrong, you come up in the weird, like, no, that's not what I'm not here to talk
not
about.
it.
So
hey, the title of our book is Streaking. We know what you're talking about.
Yes. You guys, you have a whole other category of awkward.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right. So okay, but that was the title for a while because close enough and we can trademark it. And then it was like, forget it. We're just gonna go with Customer Experience Engine. That's simple, it's clear. And literally, I had announced that's the deal. I have a little team, and one of my good friends said, "What's the title again?" And it's the week before. And this is just a testament to good friendship. So she's another business owner, very successful. And so we were at a conference together talking, and she's like, "Tell me about your book. What'd you end up with the title?" And I tell her, and she's like, "I just got to be honest. It's boring. It's not exciting. I'm not interested."
That does not work.
She's like, it's like a 6 or 7 out of 10. Like it's meh. Like it's not bad, but it's certainly not memorable.
Gotta love it when someone's like, it's and you're like, okay.
It takes a true friend to be that truly honest.
Yes. And so then she says, I'm writing a book. Let me tell you the kind of title I'm picked, just to know what I'm into. And I'm like, well, that'll be useful.
Okay.
And so hopefully this is, if you have to edit this out, we can do this later. But her title this is the title of her book, Delegate Everything But Sex. And it's her leadership book. And I'm like, okay, that is a much more
memorable book.
Yes. Like I'm not even in the same category of interest, right? Like customer experience, bureaucracy, like compared to like pop. And I'm like, dang. So I don't know that I got to her level of catchiness with the new title. But I'll give you the concept. So what we went for was this. We want action verbs rather than a noun, right? Yeah. We want something they can see themselves doing. It has to roll off the tongue a little easier. And then this was key. The Customer Experience Engine is the methodology. So we'll get into that if you want in a minute, but like that's how you get there. But it doesn't tell you what you get for why would I do that? Like what's the point? What's the like, and we're like, well, actually, so we had Customer Experience Engine as the title, and then in the subtitle we talked about creating raving fans and building great brands and all this cool stuff. And we're like, actually switch them. The title should be, here's what you get, and then the subtitle is, and you'd use the Customer Experience Engine to get it. So again, maybe not as cool as the other book title, but here's what we landed on was Make Your Brand Legendary. And so it's an action thing. It's not about how to make your brand legendary because it's a how-to book, but now it's a lot of words. So like shorten it a little bit, make your brand legendary, create raving fans with the Customer Experience Engine. So that's
awesome. I love it.
It was a process.
I'm glad you didn't do how to because it has a different connotation, but I love the conciseness and kind of the look, do this. This is what you're going to do. You're going to make your brand legendary.
And it immediately conjures up all kinds of great things because I think of all kinds of legendary brands. And I'm like, okay, how did they do it? How did they get to that? Now I'm interested. Yeah. That's what I love. When I read it and you'd sent it over, I'm like, that is a great title. And it's amazing how much you need to put work, energy, and effort into a title. I was reading, I actually took a master class by Malcolm Gladwell. And he said he controls all of his titles. He doesn't let anyone else do them and he says it takes him days for the titles, like the subtitles in the book. Because of how much it means, like yours, make your brand legendary. It just conjures up all of these great brands that are out there and like, I want to do that.
Well, listen, I think the title is 80% of the marketing and growth value of the book. Now, long term, if it's an amazing book, even with a bad title, I have recommended books and said, gosh, the title's terrible, but you guys got
the book is awesome.
Read this.
Yeah.
But most people, if they aren't caught by the title, they're not going to read the subtitle, let alone open the flap or scroll down the page to see the details, let alone actually try the book. Like, it all makes or breaks on the first moment. Does the title spark some sort of interest? And if it doesn't, then it doesn't matter how cool the rest of your filler copy is. They're never going to go find out. And so,
Right.
yeah, it is, it's significant for the impact that you're going to have. And by the way, for all the listeners here that are doing this, maybe you're not a book author. If you are, titles, but if you're writing a post online, that first sentence is the title of that post, right? The title sometimes of the podcast episode or the podcast itself. That first line, I would say, as a presenter, when you're given a presentation or a keynote, if you open with some sort of like filler background, like, no, you need to open with a powerful statement that catches, and then you can back up and give them the backstories and all. But the first statement, the title, the first line, the first thing you say, these are massively important if you want to capture people's attention.
Yeah.
This
really.
reminds me, this is a little bit off topic, but talking about that first line and capturing the attention, our son was asked to give a talk in church. And that has always been your big thing. Because a lot of times when we're given talks in church, a lot of times they're given a topic to talk on. So a lot of people will start their talk with, I was assigned to speak on. And it is a huge
Real
pet peeve for
snoozer,
Jeff.
I hate it.
He's like, I hate it when people start that way. So he has taught our kids over and over again about the importance of that first line in the presenting. So I remember one time our son, and he was probably 17 when he was given this talk, he gets up in church and he stands up there and straight into the microphone he says,
and raises his hands
high, and he says, you need to repent. And that's how he started his talk. And but I thought, well, he caught the attention of everyone there.
I mean, yeah.
So it is true. You want to get that first line really helps make or break it.
Maybe he should spend a little longer working on his title, but
yeah,
it is better to be a little too much than
little too much. Yeah. His youth was helpful, so you can look past things. So you had mentioned that this book is different than your others in the sense that you had so much content. Mm-hmm. Did you find that easier to work with or harder to work with?
Honestly, harder. I honestly left out a tremendous amount of things I wanted to put in the book, but and what I may actually end up having to do. So the engine has 5 sections to it, right? So there's the fuel and the gears and the belt and all this fun stuff. And each of those sections, and then I give an overview of why, and then a little application at the end, right? But each of those 5 sections, honestly, in the future, I may need to do an entire book on each of those 5 sections because here's where it gets into like, okay, I'll give you one example. We talk about customer insight as the fuel for the engine, right? All the stuff you're going to do assumes you're feeding. Do I really know who I'm serving? Who are my listeners? Who are my clients? Who are my customers? Who are the people? What do they actually care about? And so I talk about tools and ways to do that. Well, the way you do it, and this is key. I wanted the book not to be motivational hype. I want it to be tactical examples. Okay, here's a tool. Here's a method. Here's a warning. Don't do this one. Hey, try this one. But man, that changes radically if you're a bank or a construction company or a software firm, even software. Am I a software that sells direct to consumers, or am I a big enterprise company software? Like which? Now, so there's principles everybody can use, but then I wanted to give an example for this guy and this guy and this guy and at some point I'm like, I had an entire chapter on the business to business version, the business consumer version, the startup version, like here's the high-tech version, here's the low. And so what I ended up doing was getting a sampling of them rather than fully unpacking all of it. But yeah, it was ironic that I wasn't struggling to come up with stuff. I ended up cutting probably, the book could easily have been 2 to 3 times the length it was. Wow. And I ended up trying to make it more efficient and saying, for example, in operational excellence, another part of it, I say, okay, everyone talks about how important excellence is. Great. How do you actually do that? And then I have 8 levers. I'm like, listen, 8 of the most common. Well, I've got about 20 that I've used with clients. I picked the 8 most common, and each of those 8, there are books about these guys. And so I gave them like, here's 3 to 5 pages to give you the big idea. So it's good. I think it's useful. The initial feedback. I went through a lot of versions. You guys as authors probably know the initial write, you feel like, oh man, I'm finally done. And then And then you realize,
and then you show it to someone and you're like, it's crap. It's total crap. And you go back.
A good book and a bad book is how many times you were willing to rewrite it.
Yes.
I mean,
that is so true. Oh my goodness. So true words were never spoken.
I think 7 versions before I think it was finally good enough. And we got that balance right, I think. I mean, lots of beta readers, lots of input. And so, but yeah, it was backwards to my other books where I was, it's like, for example, one of my first books I call How to Fail as a Leader is like the struggles, the mistakes I made as an early leader. And so it's got a fun story. But honestly, I wrote the story and then I filled in lots of the dumb mistakes I made. And I got to the last chapter and I was like, oh yeah, no. Unfortunately / fortunately, I had a lot of mistakes to draw on, but even still, I was filling in content. This time around, I was cutting content. So it was, again, the difference is I've been doing this work for 10 years. So I have a unusually deep well of examples to draw from. So
nice.
Right.
So let's go into that just a little bit. You mentioned the 5 areas of the book, or the 5 things that you look at for the engine. Give us just a little bit of what those are, and then maybe you don't have to go into all of them, but what were some of the more fun stories to relive, or what were some of the more interesting stories to relive that actually made the cut into the book?
Yeah, excellent. So let me give you the overview, and then I'll give a couple of highlight stuff that got in there. So, okay, so the engine, there's fuel that comes in the engine, and then there's 3 gears at the middle of the engine that you put them through the process, and then there's a belt wrapping around those gears, kind of keeping it all running, right? So the fuel that comes in is customer insight. Do you really understand your customers? And what we found is most people have customer data, not customer insight. They know facts about them, they don't know why, right? And so, they'll know what they buy, when they buy, where they live, some of their demographics maybe, but they don't know who else they considered or what they love about you or how they use you in their life. And so really getting past the surface stats to understanding the stories and their experience and where you fit in their life. Well, that insight allows you to make so many more efficient decisions on, hey, this little touch is going to love it. And this little touch they don't care about. And so you don't have to do what most businesses do and just throw a bunch against the wall and cross your fingers and hope something sticks. You can actually do a little homework in advance and know what's going to stick. So that's the fuel. So when you have that in mind and you've got customer profiles and you know all this stuff about your customers, the first thing they want is operational excellence, which is not usually what most people think. Raving fans, they're like, oh man, we're going to throw a party and send them a note. And that comes later. The first thing they ask is not how cool are you and how nice. They ask, can I trust you? Can I trust that you're going to be there every time with excellence? And we think excellence is how cool our software is or how smart our team. It's how consistent we are. And so one of the stories that makes in the book, fair warning, I pick on McDonald's in the book. I actually like McDonald's. They're a good business. They make a lot of money. When I was a kid, it was like my favorite treat. And so there's always going to be this nostalgic appreciation I have for McDonald's. But especially my days at Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A is a really
I was going to say
comparison, right?
Right.
And so McDonald's, the way we pick at them is like, operational excellence. So one of my favorite examples is I'll put you guys to the test. When I talk about McDonald's ice cream machines, what do you think of?
The many times that it wasn't working when I got there.
Yeah, then I took the one time I took the kids and had promised them all an ice cream and it wasn't working.
And it was down.
They are like famously broken. They're so broken that one of their customers got mad, and maybe on your spare time or your listener's spare time, you guys can check out www.mcbroken.com.
Oh boy.
mcbroken.com. It's hilarious. Okay. This guy made a real-time map of the US, and you can like zoom in, zoom out, and see all of the broken ice cream machine locations on McDonald's on the map. Like he's got green if it's good, red if it's broken. I mean, and it's crazy.
He's redefining making your brand legendary at that point.
So
that's a lot of time to spend on something that was just kind of annoying.
How mad do you have to be?
Yes.
Like it costs nothing. It's free for the world to just go see how bad McDonald's is. I mean,
my goodness.
Hilarious, right? Okay, now here's the reason I bring that. Partly because it's vivid and funny. but when you do it, and I've done this, I'll do this in a presentation and I'll say, everybody pull out your phones and check this out. And then they'll, on the right, he has like some of the major metropolises and then the national broken percentage, like how many percent are broken right now. And so the way it works, every hour, he puts an order for an ice cream cone at every location in the US. Now he doesn't pay for it. He then cancels the order, but they will send some of them a message back saying, sorry, product not available right now. And then he's like, red pin, broken, caught you, right? Like it's this whole jam. So, he's mad. Okay, so when you look at the national percentage, and I've done this live for probably 5 years now. It's been out for a while, maybe 4 years. I've seen it go between 10 and 14% on average, closer to 10 to 11 on average.
Wow,
now,
no kidding.
Here's what I poke at people. I say, you think excellence is about how cool you are, how good your product is. Well, man, we say it all the time at Chick-fil-A. Man, if McDonald's would ever be consistent, they could ever get their people to show up regularly, like they'd be a serious competitor. When they get it right, it's good. I mean, no offense to all my Chick-fil-A friends out there, but if you happen to catch McDonald's fries when they just, I mean, I don't know if you just
exactly.
You just hit her sweet spot right there.
But it's interesting because I exactly had this conversation with my daughter 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
Where she was asking, what are your favorite fries? And I said, McDonald's fries when they're good. But I can't always count on it. When they're good, they're amazing. When they're bad, they're worst.
They're really bad.
And
yes. Okay.
So, it's funny. Literally 2 days ago, that was my conversation.
This is our, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. And here's the insight, right? Being inconsistently excellent earns you the same amount of trust as being consistently bad.
Yeah.
You don't give them credit for their good days, bad, average it out. It's like, listen, since I can't count on them, I just think of them as always broken, right? Yep. Their ice cream machines are almost 90% functional. The 10 to 14% broken. That means 86 to 90% working. And we're famously broken.
Yeah.
If they can't count on you every time, they don't care about how fancy you can be sometimes. Yeah. Inconsistent excellence earns the same trust as being consistently bad. And so that's one of the stories that made it in the book, partly because it's personal to me. I live it. And partly because www.mcbroken.com is so brilliantly painful.
You know what I love about that too, and this is something that we emphasize because I think about, so make your brand legendary. We're talking about corporations, organizations, and so forth. This applies to individuals as well.
Yes.
And as you look at it, the consistency, and this is one of the things I love about streaking, is a lot of times people will ask, well, can I just break my streak and then come back and I'm 80% of the time there? And I'm like, you know what? That is probably the worst thing that you can do.
Yes.
Because when you're not consistent with yourself, all of a sudden you start to be leery of, will I keep this commitment? Will I not keep this commitment? I mean, you start to not trust yourself. And if you don't trust yourself and have credibility in yourself, it's very difficult for others as well.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. And just as you were talking, I thought it's all about expectations. If people have an expectation and that expectation is met, life is great.
It's wonderful.
And it doesn't really matter what the expectation is sometimes. It's just, was it met or did you lose it? Because I also think the same thing for me. Costco is a great brand. And when I look at that, it's because they consistently exceed my expectation of what I will be getting. And so you're right. When you feel like you can count on something, you go back. When you feel like you're playing Russian roulette, there's a good amount of time you're like, not worth it. Just not worth the possibility of getting shot.
Yeah, I didn't just like, this is a huge part of the book and excellence in brands. And honestly, to use your language, we have to do streaking with our customers, which means we have to be the kind of people that show up that way. And what we say is this is first in sequence and in priority. If you don't get this right, it doesn't matter how fancy you be sometimes, right? It doesn't matter how cool your fries are once in a while. If I can't count on them like a streaking pattern, then in fact, I might get annoyed. You try to do this fancy stuff and I'm like, why don't you just show up on time, right? Why don't you get the food hot? Like, forget the other stuff, get this right, and then we'll talk, buddy. Yeah. So that's the first critical piece that we get into.
That's awesome. I want to stay on this for just 1 second more.
Sure.
Because it's not the first thing that people think about. They think
100%.
about the splash, the brand, the market. They don't think about the operation. How did you guys get past that to really see that it is the operational excellence? And it may have taken years to really see the pattern, or you may have seen it right away. But what was it that kind of were like, you know what, this is really the first thing?
I actually, like you, I was actually pushing. I was a consultant doing fancy stuff, and then the Chick-fil-A family hired me to come work for them, and it was actually Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A. I mean, it was my third or fourth week at the company, and Truett said, the key to our brand is consistency. And I was waiting for like product quality and heart and God's blessing and all these noble things. Like consistency, hot food hot, cold food cold, on time. I don't care if we do any of the other stuff. And I was like, mind exploded. What? Like, it's not the cows, it's not the cool stuff. And he said, it's consistency. We win or lose if we're consistent. That's the game. All the rest is bonus. And so I got to credit Truett Cathy, massive mentor to my life, huge impact on me. So, yeah.
All right, so let's keep going. Did you have another thought? Or?
Just love the simplicity of it. That you, it's nice sometimes to know that there can be a lot of bells and whistles, but when you're wanting to really make impact, whether in a company or in your personal life, it's nice to know there's one thing you can look at and be like, this is the, and keep circling back. And once, because I feel like what your book is going to be saying is, once you've got that in place, you're always going to be coming back and making sure that's in place.
Yes.
And then you can move on. But again, this is kind of your foundational point. And if ever it gets out of line, you're going to go back to make sure that is back in place.
Well, I actually cite another book to say that exact same thing. So you may have read a Jim Collins book, Good to Great. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's a classic, right? And one of the things in his book he talks about is the flywheel. So I use this engine metaphor. Well, he's before combustion engines. The engine a family might have is this giant stone wheel that would maybe take an hour to get spinning and then go. And then off the momentum of that, you can drop these little gears in and they spin off the momentum of this big wheel, right? But he says, and that's where I quote him in the book, is like, the great brands never stop pushing on the flywheel. And the flywheel is operational excellence. In my diagram, by far, like bigger than the other two gears put together, the big beast of a gear is operational excellence. It's big, it's heavy. It takes a lot of work to get spinning, get that streak going with consistency. But when you do, never stop pushing on it. You can't take your eyes off it and think, oh, now we get to do the yes, and fancy stuff, but never instead of. There's always a discipline to stay with the basics. In fact, the great brands have a passion for the little details. Like they care at a level about the quote unquote boring stuff. I mean, Chick-fil-A is still measuring the speed of their drive-through and having competitions to see if we can shave another second off that experience without making it feel bad. Like they're already faster than everybody else. Together, right?
Well, and I, because I know their food is going to be consistent, I'll wait longer just to do that. Even if their drive-through is slow, I will wait in line.
But you do that because the drive-through isn't slow. It's long, but it's not slow.
That's true.
So the discipline of that, you're so on, Jami. So, okay.
Awesome.
So let's say we've earned trust and you got that going. That alone often will make you stand out and become like, there's some industries where consistency is so rare that this is part of Chick-fil-A story. Consistency is so rare. You build trust. And you're in the early days when I was growing up and kind of got to know Chick-fil-A, they didn't have the cows. They didn't have fancy parties. They were basically just a mall restaurant, but dang it, the food was good. And it was the only fast food joint that I knew of you could count on always being awesome, right? So consistency alone is good, but if you really want to go to the next level, then the next gear we talk about is personalized service. Creating an experience or an interaction that makes them feel like a real person and feels custom to them. It's not generic. It's not standard. It's a custom personal reach out. It's not reactive. It's proactive. Now, this is a little bitty gear because what we found is if you have excellence in the basics, you don't have to do this very often. Once or twice a year, do some sort of small touch that says, I see you. See, first they're asking, can I trust you? And once they do, then they start asking, do you care about me? Do you see me as a person? Do I matter? And they want to feel like you're speaking to them, that you get them, that that you're, and the way you get people to care about you is you care about them first. So little touches to say, I see you, I get you. It's there's high touch things to do, like using their name and sending them personal notes or things like that. There's high tech tools on way to do it. Like you can have kind of CRM systems or all these kind of online ways. It depends on your type of business. And I give lots of examples, but again, pick one or two things once or twice a year that just says, I like you, I see you. It's a little note. This is not the sales note, right? This is the, hey, here's a gift from us to you. Here's a little something. Could be send them a little digital, bonus surprise or something. It doesn't have to be expensive because it's not about the effort of the core service. You're already providing that. This is just a little, hey, I just want to let you know we actually care about you. Here's a little something from us to you. And so there's a lot of ways to do that, but that's the next piece. So you make a personal human connection. Now,
and how did you get that piece? Where did you see that? In what organizations did you see that?
Dozens of organizations.
Yeah.
So my job at Chick-fil-A was a really unique one. I ended up being what called organizational effectiveness consultant, which is incredibly vague, right? Just make it better. So what it really meant I did was I did strategic planning with the leadership team. And then most of a plan is 5% more, 10% better. Let's just keep growing, right? But once or twice a year, we'd be like, man, we got to really rethink that. Let's totally change that area. Or how did everyone else do this? So that was really my job. I spent 50% of my time traveling the world, going inside other companies, saying, how did the best in the world do it? And then the other half, I'd come back and lead the upgrade at Chick-fil-A. So super cool job, crazy awesome. So, there was a lot of sacrifice. I mean, I had to spend a lot of time at places like Ritz-Carlton properties and private tours at Disney World. And it's tough, man.
It was tough.
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard
Way to pay your dues.
Thank you.
Stick with it.
I had a team. We kept looking at each other and we'd be like, I just want you to know someday your sacrifice is going to pay off. Will you pass the salt for my steak? I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah, it was now there were days when I was like, in a manufacturing plant in Cleveland, no offense to Cleveland, but that's not Key West.
No.
So, but yes, I mean, we stole tons of stuff from Ritz-Carlton on how you do this. Disney World, the way they make magical moments and special experiences. We went to fine dining restaurants. We literally looked up some of the top restaurants in the US and said, okay, we got to schedule trips and go see how do these guys do it? What makes them the best in their class? And so it was, we borrowed a lot of fine dining stuff, like coming to their table, if it's just dumb stuff at Chick-fil-A, right? How do you make a fast food person feel special? We just bring fine dining practice in. We'll give you a free refill the refills were free always, but nobody goes to your table and gives you a refill. You have to go to the front, right? Well, what if we come to you? Whoa, right? Or from Ritz, we stole My Pleasure. So if you've been to Chick-fil-A in the US, don't say thank you. They don't say you're welcome. They say it's my pleasure. Literally a Ritz-Carlton piece we straight up stole. Truett was like, that's nice. That's free. We're doing that. And he came back and told everybody, we're going to say my pleasure. And he went through this whole deal. So we just saw these little touches, but I will say it really, it went back before that. I mean, so I had a background working in nonprofits, even in the theater when we did events. We found ways to find people, use their name, make a touch. I mean, you go to the old classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he said, the sweetest word in any language is a person's name. Call them by their name and they like it. And so it's just like fundamental human stuff that we just started playing with. Now, how does kind of a legal firm do this? High-end law firm is going to use a different set of tools to make their people feel seen than a software company that has 100,000 customers. So those guys are going to be sending automated texts, where these guys, the legal firm might be sending a premium box to the CEO client that they work with. So the methods might change, but man, this is one of the most fun. Honestly, I'll give you the most fundamental one. Just send them a note.
Just send them a note. Right,
handwritten note.
Yep.
If anything,
it's interesting. We work with a CEO who one of his streaks is to send a handwritten note, at least one every week, and that's what he does to clients.
I mean, there it is.
Sends it off, and it's awesome.
Yeah, that little touch, right? He probably doesn't have to write a very long one. I mean, he can literally say, "Hey Jeff, how are you doing? I was just thinking of you today. Hope you're well."
And that's exactly what he wrote to me. And I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's in, I have a little bucket back here, a little tray that I keep all those that note in. And it's like, it's the coolest thing.
Because the question becomes, do you care about me? And this note says, I see you, you matter to me.
Yeah.
Right? Jeff matters to me as a person, and that's it. You weren't, if you call him and say, hey, how you doing? And he replies, hey, doing well, how are you doing? It doesn't have the same thing as when he reaches out to you.
Yes.
Because again, the question is, do you like me? So, okay, so let's say we've done all this. We've done almost all the engine. It's great. If you stop here, your customers love you and they aren't telling anyone about you. Just because they love you doesn't mean they talk. So you got to do something to activate them to talk. And when that gets you to this last part, that's what we call creating a memorable moment. These moments that pop, that allow them to say, because here's the insight. People don't tell facts, they tell stories. So if you want them to talk about you, you have to give them a story to tell. You have to create a story-worthy moment. And when you do that, the people who love you will talk about you. Now the sequence is critical. Because if you skip ahead to this fancy fun stuff and make up a cool story moment, but they don't trust you and don't feel cared for, they're not going to tell anybody. They have to already love you. And then you just do these little bitty things and they go nuts and talk all about you. Like it unlocks stuff for people. So this memorable moment is ways, and this is the key, the mistake a lot of companies make. They're like, oh, okay, got it. And then they do this moment to make, well, actually, I'm going to use Star Wars as an example. This is one of the things that gets in the book. Maybe because it works. I think it works. Maybe because I have a Jedi robe and lightsaber in my closet. For the kids.
Okay, our son just spent north of $400 on a lightsaber that is like the coolest lightsaber I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Is this the one like the light slides up and down and like, oh yeah.
And I remember thinking you worked all summer as a lifeguard and this is where you want to spend your money. Okay.
This is priorities.
So, yeah.
I mean, okay, so here's the deal. Here's why. Because I want to be a Jedi, probably like your son, right? This is like I for your listeners, this has nothing to do with leadership. Pro tip. When you're walking into the grocery store, you can find the crack in the sidewalk where when you hit it, the door's open. And if you wave your hands 3 fingers in front of you, right at the time when you step on that crack, I'm just saying. You
can be a Jedi.
Jedi, baby.
I'm pretty sure my kids thought I had force powers because that was how I entered the grocery store with them every time.
I love it.
Somewhere around 6 or 7, they realized they could do this without Dad waving his hand. But
hey, they're Padawan learners, and
I know. You got to raise them up, right? So Jedi, I keep wanting to make the story about how awesome I am. I want to be Luke Skywalker, right? I want to be the hero that, young Luke, not depressed deadbeat dad Luke. What they did to
it's sad that you have to clarify, but it's essential.
Thank you. They wrecked that guy. He was a hero. Now he's a moron.
I know.
I want to be young Luke. I do not want to be old Luke, right? Okay. So I'm Luke. I'm Rey. And I keep thinking, if I make this story, how cool is this guy? Look, he's a Jedi. They might even believe I'm a Jedi. They don't want to tell anyone. The story can't be about me. If we make the story about me, they don't tell anyone. So this is the key. The hero of the story moment is your customer. They have to feel like they're a Jedi, and then they want to tell everybody, look, check this thing out. It makes me look like a Jedi. So let me give you, we do need to be in the story though, right? If we're not in the story, we don't get any benefit. So if we don't get to be Luke or Rey, we play the role of Yoda. We're the wise mentor. We're the guide that helps them realize they really are awesome. They really can live their dreams and be a Jedi. So practical examples of this. So from Chick-fil-A, I don't know if you ever take your kids this, they have a daddy-daughter date night or father-son nights or all these moments. And you show up and they have like fancy tablecloths and these cool things and flowers for the girls, or the father-son night. They've got like this, they actually have a night outfit, KNIGT, mother. The boys get to like have little swords and cool things. And
that's awesome.
And the moment is how good of a parent you are, not how cool Chick-fil-A is, right? And they take pictures and they send, and then people share that like crazy because it's look what I get to do with my kid. Oh, thank you, Chick-fil-A, Yoda, setting me up right there. No, some folks, we have clients like construction companies. They're like, I don't think we're going to have romantic dinners over a job site. Like, I'm going to work. So we do things with them like, okay, roll out a red carpet and show up at the end of the build, a literal red carpet, throw a party, take pictures of your customers, tell the neighborhood, look, everybody, look at who moved into the new house or stepped into this new office building. And they're the hero and you're just Yoda who gets to help. Look, we're so glad we can help awesome people like this keep going. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like what you guys do. You guys as the Yodas, right? I don't know if there's a Mrs. Yoda. There probably ought to be here, right? But the Yoda pair gets together and helps other people realize we can achieve our dreams. We can really be heroes. We just need to use this streaking method, right?
Yes.
It works.
Right.
And so the stories about how awesome they are, and we just get to be the mentors who help them figure it out. That story, they spread that story like wildfire. People love telling that. Or like there's some brands, even Apple's done this with their boxes, which is a weird, like they made a moment out of the box opening. So I don't know if you know this, they've patented their cardboard box, which
I did not
really?
I didn't realize they did
got
that,
like 20
I love their cardboard box. I mean, it is awesome.
It is amazing. In fact, I've done this at live audiences. I'm curious if this is true, you guys. And I'll say, put your hand up if you still have an Apple product box sitting around, you have not thrown it away. And I see Jeff's hand sliding.
More than one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can pull it out right now.
Yes, exactly. Like what? We don't do anything with it. And no, actually, I have to pause and check, Jeff. Do you keep all your Amazon boxes?
No.
Okay, good. Because that's called hoarding. That's a different problem.
There's a difference.
No.
Yes. Okay, there's something about the box. They made a moment. And here's why. I think it's because we feel awesome while we're opening that box. I mean, it's all sorts of little things, like the wrapping's cool to get off. The first thing you always see is your device framed like it's a piece of art. Like it's like the light glows, like Ariel sings in the background. Oh, right. I mean, it's this moment. And what happens is I feel pretty amazing. Look at what I've got. Look at what I did. I'm a premium person. Yep. I'm pretty awesome. And that's why the box is associated with feeling awesome. We don't want to throw it away because we feel awesome.
I'm not going to throw that away. That was a moment.
That was a moment. I had a moment there. I'm not going to.
Even if you can't show up in person, maybe there are ways with your packaging that you can set things up that make them feel like, man, this is so cool. Look at the cool stuff I buy and use. I'm pretty premium. I mean, that's Apple's feeling, right? So the question they start asking is, how do I feel about myself when I'm with you? Yeah. Like not what do you think about you? What do I think about myself while I'm using your stuff? While I'm working on am I proud of myself? Am I hopeful? Am I excited? Am I the Jedi I always wished I could be? And if you can find a way to make people feel like you might be more awesome than you think, and then once or twice a year do a little something to give them some sort of story to tell, they'll go wildfire. This is where people go from loving fans to raving fans, where they tell everybody and the brand grows exponentially. And it's amazing. And again, a little bitty effort. If you've done excellence, made them feel cared for, then once or twice a year, you do some sort of special moment that they have a story to tell. Oh man, the brand goes nuts. Brand goes nuts at that point.
That's cool. So in our last moments here, the belt. What is?
I didn't used to have the belt. But in the early days, I was doing this with companies, and when it wasn't present, it didn't work. And the belt is a healthy leadership team. Now, listen, I love leadership teams. My first 3 books are leadership books. I'm not but I'm thinking I already have leadership books. This is it. This is the customer experience book, right? And what I found is if the whole team doesn't combine and align and all point in the same direction, this thing doesn't work. And so the key word is healthy. By a healthy team, I mean, they all have a shared win. They all collaborate together. This is not a competitive against each other team. They might be good individuals. But if they're not all pointing in the same direction, I'll put it this way simply. If you tell 2 different stories to your customers or have 2 different feelings that come out, they believe neither of them. From start to finish, every part of the experience of your company has to feel like this is the same group we're working with. They all have the same attitude, same feeling, same goals. And the metaphor I use, it's a little bit like a football team. We might play wildly different positions, but we win or lose together. We have one number, one win, and we might all have to do different stuff to pull together. Linemen's different than the kickers, different than the defensive back. But at the end of the day, they all have to come together and share and trade. So like, do your team trade resources, trade talent? Do they get together and work on each other's problems, even if it's in your department? Or if it's like, sucks to be you, sorry, your department's struggling, then you're not going to pull this thing off.
Together.
Right.
It's an all or nothing engine. When you do it all, it always works. If you do half of it, it doesn't work at all. You don't get half credit.
Right.
So hence the belt.
No half snow cones.
Not half snow cone, full snow cone,
Full
not half snow cone.
Yep. So
A little tribute to Brian Regan there, if you haven't heard.
I
his
totally
bit on that.
huge fan of that. We may have that whole thing memorized.
Yes.
Both flavors are my favorite.
Both flavors, yes.
And if your fans don't know, check out Brian Regan.
Check out Brian Regan.
One of the greats of all time.
So good.
Yes.
Well, Scott,
This has been amazing.
This has been amazing. We could unpack so much more. And what we got to do is encourage all of our listeners to really go out. And the book's available when? So you can pre-order now.
October 10th, 2023,
Okay.
It comes out.
Okay. It is going to be fantastic. If anyone wants to get a hold of you that is listening, where's the best place to get a hold of you?
So you can find me and all my personal stuff at scottwozniak.com. That's SCOTTWOZNIAK.com. And then you can check out my company and my books on both of those sites. But you can also, I have a newsletter and a bunch of other stuff that you can get there if you want. And that's SWOZ Consulting, SWOZ Consulting.com. So either the main company site or my personal site, and either one of them has links to all my stuff.
Fantastic. Well, we have enjoyed talking with you,
great.
Streakers. Scott is absolutely phenomenal. The book, I already know just based on talking to you, is going to be great, and we're looking forward to reading it. If you'd like to reach out to Jami or I, ask any questions of us, you can do that at Jeffrey, Jeffery, at thestreakingapp.com, or
Jami, Jami, at thestreakingapp.com.
as always, you can download the Streaking app at Google Play or the Apple App Store. You can buy the book anywhere books are sold. And if you wouldn't mind doing us a favor and either subscribing to the podcast or giving us a review on the app or even the book, we would certainly appreciate that. Well, until we talk again,
Keep